there, it's Jen and I'm back with another layout for Hip Kit Club. Today I am using the gorgeous September kits. I love these kits. This is going to be my first layout with them. And I am using the main kit and the cardstock kit only. And I'm going to start with these two pattern papers. I'm going to use the houses because I think they're adorable, and the flowers because I think they're adorable. My two favorite things from the kit, maybe. And I'm going to scrapbook this photo of my brother's two dogs. We babysat them for 5 days or so while they were on vacation. And they're just the cutest little shorkies. And so I thought I would do that, and I'm going to use the houses because they stayed at our house, so I figured it kind of went, and we're going to start from there. I'm also going to be using the stamp set, and I will show you, I did a little practicing beforehand to make sure it would work, but I'm going to be doing some stamping on vellum. And so we'll see how that comes into play, but let me go ahead and put you on fast forward and we can walk through this process.
Alright, so I didn't make you watch me fussy cut those papers because I decided to cut that floral paper up completely. I know I won't use all of the pieces on this layout, but I just figured since I had 2 sheets of it that I would cut one up and save the other one. So what I'm doing now is kind of nestling those flowers around my photo, and I'm going to create a diagonal design. And I'm trying to get a good balance. There's some yellow flowers and then some pinkish flowers, and so I want to make sure I have a little bit of both on top and bottom. And then I'm also making it go off the sides on both the top and bottom. I really like the way that one at the top kind of hugs the corner. And now I'm playing around with the houses. So I was pretty impressed with myself for coming up with this title for my brother's dogs that we watched, House Guests, because I really wanted to use those little houses. And sometimes it's hard for me to figure out a reason to use houses. I'm not always a super literal scrapbooker, but sometimes I feel like it needs to make sense. And so I was really happy with that. And I'm playing around with some of the bits of those little, what are they called? Buttons from the Dear Lizzie She's Magic collection, and then I'm also pulling out just a couple of die cuts from the Indian Summer collection by Kim Watson for Pretty Little Studio. And I'm gonna pull this off and put it back on like several times, the flowers and the houses, and just because I could not decide exactly what I wanted. So now what I'm doing is gluing down the flowers finally, and I think I skipped through some of me like kind of messing around with the flowers just because it was monotonous, and my photo is totally crooked right there, so I'm gonna fix that in a second. But also sorry because my iPad is sitting there at the top of my screen and I didn't notice that it was in frame. It's just barely, but anyway, I was watching some YouTube videos while I was filming this, and I really love this floral paper. It is my favorite floral paper in a long time. So at this point I'm going to get ready to put the title down, and I thought maybe I would split it up and put half of it above the photo and half below, but I just like the whole thing together, and so I'm going to place the word house on the photo and then the word guests centered below it. And these stickers are really pretty. They are kind of like an iridescent color on top, and then they have a pink foam underneath, and so it's kind of a fun little peak. So I wanted to put this wreath to the left of that I wanted to fill in that space a little bit and find a home for some embellishments. I did consider putting my journaling there too, but I don't end up doing that. I like that little yes sticker. That's a dimensional sticker from the Pinkfresh Studio Office Hours embellishments that come in the main kit. And then I'm playing around again with the houses. So the houses, I don't know if you can see, but the windows on them are either black, like filled in, or they're open. And I was trying to get a good mix of open and filled in and tall and short. So I was just kind of playing around with them until I got kind of a grouping that I liked. And even after this, I will change up where I put the houses again. So I move those around so many times. I have a little piece of wax paper there with some embellishments I'm considering adding. But what I'm going to do now is, before I add anything else, I knew I wanted to use the stamp set that came in the kit, and it has like a floral that's similar to the floral that's on the paper that I fussy cut, and I wanted it to have kind of two color ways. Like, I wanted it to have multiple colors going on, but it's just one stamp for the inside and one stamp for the outside. So basically what I did was I just inked up portions of the stamp, which is really easy to do if you're using little ink cubes, and I just inked up a little portion of the stamp and then stamped it down, and I stamped it several times. It doesn't matter if it looks perfect because it's meant to be kind of a messy look. And so you can see I stamped some of the leaves green, and then the flowery parts I did in a light pink and a darker pink. Just, I was trying to match the colors of that patterned paper, and I'm stamping them on the vellum that comes in the cardstock kit for this month. And I think that these turn out really, really pretty. The ink does take a minute to dry on vellum, so that is a little bit of a pain, but for the black outline, I made sure to use Stays On ink because it dries almost immediately, and that ended up working out really well. So you can see I stamped some smaller flowers in yellow, and now I'm inking up the outside portion, and this doesn't matter if it lines up perfectly either, because again, it's meant to have kind of a messy look. And I'm going to stamp the outside of the smaller flower as well. So this stamp set's really cool because every single stamp on there has an inner and an outer stamp. So you can stamp more of a solid image on the inside and then the outline. Or you can use them together or separately or whatever you want. So it's a fun stamp set. So now what I'm doing is adding a little bit of yellow to the centers of the flowers, and I just used a tiny little brush. You can see it there. I'm using it. It's a makeup brush. It's kind of like the life-changing brushes, except for this one's itty bitty teeny tiny, and I got it on Amazon in a package with a bunch of other ones, but that's the only one I've seen that small, and it worked perfectly for adding some yellow ink to the middle of the flowers. So now that I have those done, I'm going to punch them out with a circle punch, and I'm using a 1 1/4 inch punch for the smaller ones and I think 2-inch punch for the larger flowers, probably. And then I will kind of play with them and tuck them into my flower layers. And I like that it's just adding a similar vibe to what's already there, but it's a little bit of a different texture, and I really like that. Also, at this point, I decided that I wanted to mat the entire layout with some of the cardstock in the cardstock kit. And so I'm just cutting about 1/4 inch off of each side. And this was a pain because if I would have thought about it before, I would have waited to glue down those flowers. But I just pulled them up a little bit and it worked out fine. So I'm using the Arroyo color that comes in the cardstock kit, and then I'm just going to center the layout on the back of that. And I decided that I did want the flowers that were going off the edges to go all the way to the edge of the cardstock, and so I'm just moving them so that they go clear to the edge, not just the edge of the white, but to the edge of the Arroyo cardstock too. And it's starting to come together. I'm going to fiddle a little bit with this wreath because I wanted it to go under the words and also underneath that flower. And I didn't want it to cover up little Zero's face there. That's the dog on the left is Zero, and the one on the right is Raven. Cute little puppies. Obnoxious, but cute. So I'm playing around with the circles now, trying to figure out where I should tuck them in and how I can kind of make this work. And so I tuck in 2 at the top and 3 at the bottom, and I'm just adding adhesive to the part where it will be covered up underneath the other floral pieces. And again, I like that this is kind of the similar vibe of the flowers that are already there, but it's just a little bit of a different texture with the vellum and stamping. So I'm going to add the time together on top of, I'm going to pop it up on some foam and add it to the right there. And then I'm also going to add my little Yes prize ribbon to the left of house guests. And now I'm finally going to get my houses down. So I decided to make it so that there were two kind of in the back, the taller ones, and then a shorter little house in front popped up. And so you can see that there. And then I'm playing around with where I want my other flowers, or my other houses to go. I also knew that I wanted to include some circle pieces from this Pinkfresh Studio Office Hours little collection thingy. I think it's mixed embellishments. And then I also wanted to include some of the buttons, and I just decided to include the black and white ones. They are so cute. And then maybe a few of these blue enamel dots, since it's hard to tell, but the paper behind that I fussy cut the floral from was blue, and I left a little border of it around the edges of all of the flowers, and so I wanted to bring a little bit of that into the layout. So I added some blue enamel dots. I decided to actually stitch my buttons on, so I'm poking some holes with just a little poker tool, and I'm going to stitch it with some embroidery thread. I stitched through it twice so that it was a little bit thicker, and then I'm just taping it on the back. I already had this thread on a needle from a previous project, so there's not very much left, but it was just enough to stitch those two buttons, so I was glad because I was feeling lazy about having to thread a needle. But yeah, there you go. So I'm going to add some of the houses above this little cluster I have on the wreath, or I'm thinking about it. I'm trying to decide where to put them. I'm going back and forth a little bit. I kind of want them to be in 3 locations because I like to have the visual triangle that draws your eye around the page. But I was just struggling a little bit trying to figure out where. So I decided to place one above the photo, and here are those 3 little houses. And then I will end up adding some in that little kind of wreath area to the left of the title. And then that kind of draws your eye around the photo. And then the floral guides your eye from the top left to the bottom right, which really draws your eye through everything too. So there's a few different things on the layout that will keep your eye moving around, which is good because each time that your eye goes around on the layout, it just takes in a little bit more of the design and a little bit more of the details. And so at first glance, you see the puppies and the flowers and maybe the title. And then as you look at it again, you see the houses and the and maybe some of the little words and embellishments. And then you look at it one more time and you see these smaller circular details. So I really like to have those elements on my layout, and maybe it's not something that somebody would know right off from looking at the layout, but I know like that when you look at it, it's a little bit more interesting. So I'm drawing my journaling lines with my black Muji pen, and I have, I guess, kind of a lot to say, so I'm drawing a lot of lines, and then I will do my journaling. And then I'm almost done here. I'm going to stamp my date, and then I'm just going to draw some little scribbly circles around in some of these little clusters to bring some of that black pen look to the rest of the layout. And that's going to complete it. So I hope that you have enjoyed. I hope that you will check out these kits. These are my favorite hip kits of all time. I think they're my favorite ever. And I hope that you'll check them out. I'll link to all available products in the video description below, and be sure to head over to the Hip Kit Club Facebook group because there's lots of inspiration shared there every single day. And if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and consider clicking on that subscribe button. Also, here are a couple other videos that I've made for Hip Kit Club that you might enjoy. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you back here again very soon.